in 5, 4, 3.
Greetings, I'm Stephen Murdow for Fox News, your source for fair and balanced reporting. As we all know, the race for Senate has been a close and heated one, with reliable and trustworthy Republican incumbent Richard Stodden trying to be unseated by rival and neophyte Democrat Daniel Lyingman.
Actually, Stephen, it's Livington, and by no means I'm a newcomer. I've held a congressional chair in the 12th District.
And it appears we've temporarily lost the audio for Daniel.
No, in fact,
There we go. Now we've apparently temporarily lost the audio for Daniel. So, Mr. Stodden, why should the viewers wish to replace your unblemished and long-serving career in Senate with a roll-of-the-dice candidate who can't even take time to properly set up his microphone?
Well, in this day and age of polygamy and Satanism, many people feel that the down-to-earth ways that made this country great no longer matter and should be swept away so we can enjoy our last moments on earth, damning our souls to hell.
How very true. Mr. Livington, nice to see you finally joined us. Do you have a rebuttal?
well, in response to your comment, I was here a good half hour before my opponent.
Mr. Stodden is a very busy man.
And secondly, I couldn't hear what my opponent was saying since I was being fitted with a new microphone.
How very irresponsible. Mr. Stodden, it's been said that your time in office has ranked up there with some of the most influential senators of all time. Not to name names, but when you think of Daniel Stodden, it seems to go tantamount with John Danforth, Barry Goldwater, and Robert Taft, yet you have not so much as received a nod for the presidential candidacy. Thoughts?
Well, I attribute the problem to politics. Finding a good presidential candidate all comes down to politics nowadays. In this humble man's opinion, there's little to no question I could rule this country fantastically.
No disagreement from either side.
I would like to disagree.
Please wait your turn, Mr. Livington.
As I was saying.
Before you're rudely interrupted by Mr. Livington?
Exactly. As I was saying, there's a time for change and a time to stay the course. My good friend Mr. Richardson, Livingston seems to demand change when no change is needed.
Interesting point. Mr. Livington, why do you feel that America needs such a radical makeover, especially after the Civil Rights Movement?
Well, it's beyond heinous to lump my asking for change with wanting to move backwards in the Civil Rights Movement, and it equally is wrong to attribute my running for Senate as a plea for some radical makeover. And furthermore, I have lobbied for several bills that have definitely changed the country in a good way. The Clean Air Act, the Educational Inspections Bill, the Workers' Service Act.
Can you cite precedent that you actually helped put forth any of these bills?
Well, my signature should be on the piece of the paper.
Fox News will be sure to investigate that matter. On the subject of passing bills, we have obtained secret reports saying that you have attempted to legalize gay marriage in the U.S. Any response to that scandalous news?
Well, those reports are no secret. I have actively attempted to gain civil rights for all people, whether...
If I may interject here, I find it suspicious that my opponent, in lieu of these surfaced reports, has attempted to spin off his recent outing in such a way that attempts to shed light and tarnish the image of the people, like myself, who just want to keep the sanctity of marriage intact.
In no way have I stated that I'm a homosexual. I merely wish...
Isn't that a bit contradictory to these exclusive reports we've obtained? You seem to be flip-flopping on the issue here.
If you are referring to my signatures on said bill, that's public information, and to twist my beliefs into a reflection of myself is a lapse in judgment and an unfair portrayal of who I am.
Well, if my opponent is not yet comfortable expressing his personal life, I do not feel he is ready to be taking such a large public role.
Of course. Now, Mr. Livington, in the past years that you've been in office, the suicide rates of military personnel have quadrupled, as has the infant mortality rate and diagnosis for depression. We've also lost many great people like civil rights activist Coretta Scott King, former President Gerald Ford, fun-loving animator Joseph Barbera, TV personality Peter Boyle, baseball players Kirby Puckett, Corey Lytle, and Buck O'Neill, crocodile hunter Steve Irwin.
Is this going anywhere?
My question is about the national debt, sir. How do you plan on overcoming the hole that your party has dug themselves into?
Well, that's not true at all. When Clinton left office in 2000, we saw the first signs of the national deficit getting out of the negative digits and actually creating a surplus in available spending. It wasn't until Bush took over that we saw the jump back to the numbers of the Vietnam War.
I would like to point out for the viewers that Mr. Livington's insistence of arguing bipartisanship in the national deficit and avoiding the fact that we, as Americans, are affected by the American deficit goes against his plea for change.
Thank you for pointing that out. Now, Rick, when you were re-elected, can we expect the same type of economic growth and overseas success we've had in these great years you were in office?
Hold on. What do you mean by when he is re-elected? I'm still in the running, and furthermore, I've served in Congress for many of the same years as Mr. Stodden. Why is America's progression going to...
Oh dear, we've lost the feed for Daniel. Back to Rick. Rick, what reason could you see where voters would not want your progression of America to continue to advance?
Well, of course, communists, terrorists, witches, child molesters.
If I may speak, as I was saying before, somehow my feed was lost. I feel Congress has had just as an important role in creating the very legislation that Mr. Stodden is taking credit for, and apparently you're attributing him to...
Mr. Livington, such grandiose claims of bias in Fox News have been debunked by several reputable reporters on this network. If we could keep the debate civil and pertaining to Mr. Stodden's re-election...
See, there you go again. Mr. Stodden hasn't won yet.
So you were stating on national television that Mr. Stodden will not win? Well, this reporter is not known for his personal attacks, but shame on you, Mr. Livington, for turning this friendly debate into a mudslinging attack on a senator.
Nah, we all know I have stood in the face of adversity and assaults, but I think that the future of this nation relies on people like myself who can let these comments roll off their shoulders as they strive for a better tomorrow.
I too wish for a better future, but I disagree with Mr. Stodden on key elements of how to achieve that, which is why I'm running for Senate. I've yet to be given a chance to express my opinion on any matters. If I could bring out this chart here that shows that the salary of Mr. Stodden over the past...
Bush gets on Air Force One. More news on this developing story after Senator Rick Stodden's interview.
Which explains why it is in the public's best interest to demand a change in Washington.
Stirring speech reminiscent of something straight out of Colonel Benedict Arnold. So what part of that prattle was true, Mr. Stodden?
Well, you know me, I'm just a small-town man who grew up in rural America and wants to make a connection with the voices of the little people who are not normally represented in this big city life.
Such inspirational words matched only by that of the late Ronald Reagan. Speaking of heroism, I just got word that our very own Rick Stodden managed to save the life of an underrepresented minority with his quick reflexes. Let's take a look.
Okay.
Stodden.
I'll do what I can. I'll tell him what he wants to hear. I can't guarantee he'll buy it. Thank you. This is David Palmer. What do you want? Drazen. Drazen.
He knows he can't get the money. Senator!
Truly great work. Would you like to elaborate on how you did that?
Oh, well, it was pretty easy. I could tell that remote control...
It was a cell phone.
That cell phone was definitely...
What in the world was that?
Congressman, can we refrain from such childish outbursts?
Childish out? That was a scene from 24 you just edited.
Well, I certainly don't know any TV show named 24, but apparently that means you spend more time watching television than doing your job.
That's the most ridiculous form of circular logic I've ever heard. You clearly edited that film. I don't understand why you can't just admit it.
Mr. Litterman, Fox News has nothing to hide, but apparently you do. Just look at this photo taken last week. You appear to be speechless. I'm not surprised.
Now, I'm not a man to delve into another man's personal life, but such an egregious personality has no place in Washington.
How very true. Excellent observations. Mr. Livington, did you ever have a crush on a girl?
A crush? Like when I was a child?
Never mind that. Your haircut looks different. Did you do something to it since last time we met?
No, it's the very same haircut.
Interesting. Is it true that all the chairs at your house are stools?
I don't know where you heard that or what possible relevance that has to the debate, but I assure you that every chair in my house has 4 legs like a typical chair does.
And if re-elected, you maintain that you'll serve the people?
I will.
Our time is almost up. We'd like to hear some closing arguments. Mr. Stodden, the biggest and probably only complaint about your term is the fact that you seem to work too hard. Can the public be assured that your obvious drive for success and perfection and workaholic attitude will help America?
Absolutely. I will get equality for all and money in their pockets, too.
Everyone here has faith that you will. Mrs. Livington, what do you plan on doing to help education?
Well, I will crush the very legs of every child. in America.
That's a shame. Well, we at Fox News just report the news. It's up to you to review it, but the clear winner tonight, Mr. Rick Stodden.
How can you declare any of this? This is absolutely ridiculous. What on earth is it? What? Oh my gosh.
How monstrously inappropriate. Next on Fox, Hannity an idiot. Good night.
Screw you, and screw you.